100 gigawatt is expected to be from the solar, and in this 100 gigawatts, 40 gigawatts is expected to come from rooftop solar, and the remaining 60 gigawatts is envisaged from utility scale ground mounted solar power plants. Just a look at how solar energy installations have been growing in the country. See, in the year 2010, we can see that there was a minuscule capacity of around 161 gigawatts only. And after the launch of the National Solar Mission, this capacity kept on increasing exponentially. And at present, we see that this capacity has 34 gigawatts of capacity. So there has been an exponential rise in this sector. Coming to the rooftop solar potential, we know that India is a vast country. We have got a huge population. There are a large number of houses, buildings, industries, etc. So this results into a great rooftop solar potential of around 124 gigawatts of market potential, which is available in the country. So there's a need to harness this to the best possible extent. These are some of the benefits which rooftop solar plants have. First of all, they reduce the requirement of land which the utility scale solar plants require. So that's always a good idea to free up the land for some more useful purposes and install the solar panels on the roofs which are lying vacant. And there are advantages which are specifically to the consumers, like they reduce the electricity demand from the grid. They can also reduce the consumption of diesel in the diesel generations. And as we know that most of the solar panels are designed to last up to 25 years, so they also provide a source of reliable power for a long period of time. There are many advantages for the discounts also. We know that in many parts of the country, the peak demand, especially in summers, come in the afternoon between 12 to 3, when the AC demands, AC load is very high. So that is the time when the solar is also at its peak intensity. And if we have got a large deployment of rooftop solar in any area, so discoms will not have to purchase peak power at a very high rate from open market. They can meet the demand from the installed solar plant rooftop solar capacity in that area only. And it also reduces the T&D losses, as we know that the rooftop solar plants are situated at the point of consumption itself. So there's not a great transmission of power taking place in rooftop solar plants. So this reduces the T&D losses very significantly. We have this peculiar problem in India of high T&D losses in many discoms. So this is a great advantage. And in many modern inverters, they have a capacity to supply reactive power also to the grid. So even when they are not operating, even at the night time, they can supply reactive power. So they can help in in controlling the tail end voltage of the system. And in many instances, the discom may not be requiring to lay new transmission lines or upgrade their transformer capacity. They can meet the demand in some particular areas from the rooftop solar itself. So they can also defer their investment requirement in many cases. And for commercial establishments, especially, these rooftop solars are very beneficial, because these buildings are operating mostly in the daytime, and in the daytime only solar has got a good generation. And presently, this cost of solar power, that solar tariffs have come down significantly, and they are very much lower than the grid tariff, means which is 8 to 9 rupees in most of the cases. And solar tariffs have come down to 3 rupees, 4 rupees or so for rooftop solar plants without any subsidy. So they are a very good business proposition for the industrial and commercial establishments also. Now, what SECI has been doing in this rooftop solar sector, SECI had been a pioneer in introducing large-scale open competitive bidding throughout the country. In 2013, we started with our pan-India schemes, and at that time, the solar tariffs, solar costs were very high, maybe in the range of 9 to 10 rupees per unit. And once we introduced the open competitive bidding into the market, we saw that the cost of the cost of the plants, the tariffs were reducing significantly with the passage of time. It was also because of the economies of scale that were introduced into the market and the competition, the learning curves. So presently, the tariffs have come down to the range of around 3.5 rupees or 4 rupees or so. So this has been a significant achievement, and under SECI's schemes, more than 365 megawatts of rooftop solar has been commissioned throughout the country, and which is spread across more than 5,000 buildings. So we have done a good work in the rooftop solar segment in the past 6 or 7 years. Now, just a brief introduction about various metering arrangement. I think most of the participants have, there was a separate session on this topic also. Just to brush up the concepts, there are two main metering arrangements. One is net metering, another is gross metering. In net metering, there is a bidirectional meter installed in this bidirectional meter, or there are two meters who can measure the export power and the imported power from the grid. So the consumer has to pay for the net power that is drawn from the grid in any billing cycle. And in gross metering, what happens, 100% of the power has to be supplied to the discom. In this gross metering, the solar power plant is connected towards the utility side of the meter. So 100% of power is sold to the discom at a pre-decided tariff, which is also called feed-in tariff in many cases. Now coming towards the rooftop solar business models, which are in vogue in the market at present, there are basically two kind of business models. One is CAPEX and another is RESCO. We'll look into detail at each of them. This is CAPEX model. CAPEX stands for capital expenditure. This is the most common and very simple model in which the rooftop owner makes an investment, purchases the power plant, and he's the owner of the power plant. He hires an EPC contractor who comes and installs the power plants, and whatever is the generation, whatever electricity is generated from the solar plant is consumed by the rooftop owner, or if there is net metering available, then they can also supply the excess power to the grid. This is a figure, indicative figure, how this CAPEX model operates. The rooftop solar system is financed or purchased by the building owner, and whatever solar energy is generated from the system is supplied to the building owner. And if there is some excess generation, then the rooftop owner can also supply that excess to the grid through net metering, or maybe gross metering is also possible in CAPEX model also. Now, coming to RESCO model, RESCO stands for Renewable Energy Services Company. In this RESCO mode, what happens, these RESCOs are this is also called third party model because there are three parties involved. First is the rooftop owner, another is the discom, a utility, and the third is the RESCO company who is installing the solar power plant. In this model, what happens is the RESCOs are big companies who have access to funds. They will come to you, they will take your roof, they'll sign agreements with you and install the solar plant with their own investment. Means the rooftop owner is not required to make any investment in RESCO model. This model can be the agreement can be different types. We are going to see the different type of models under this RESCO. One can be build, own, operate, transfer, which is called BOOT. Another is BOOM, build, own, operate, and maintain. And the third model is rooftop rental. Under the BOOT model, the rooftop owner will be handed over the plant after a particular period. Say the RESCO player will invest and operate the plant for an initial period of 5 months, 6 months, under which he will recover the cost, and then he will hand over the solar plant to the rooftop owner after the completion of contract period. And once the plant is handed over to the rooftop owner, the responsibility of the the O&M maintenance lies with the rooftop owner itself. Under the build, own, operate, maintain model, the RESCO player will own and operate the plant for its complete lifetime, say 20 years, 25 years. So long-term power purchase agreements are signed under this model. And in this model, the rooftop owner is not worried about O&M of the plant for at any point of time. There's a third variant of RESCO model, which is rooftop rental. In this, the power that is generated from the solar plant is not supplied to the rooftop owner. The rooftop owner only charges a rent from the RESCO. And this rent agreement can also be of different kinds. There can be a rent that is fixed on the basis of area, say X rupees per square meter of area for per annum, or this rent can be also in the terms of units that are generated from the plant, say 50 paisa per unit generated. So this can be also of two kinds, two types, and under this scheme, the complete power is either supplied to the DISCOM under gross metering, or there can be any third party or another party open access. Through open access, we can supply it to another buyers also in the open market. So both of these are possible under this rooftop rental model. This is just a comparison, means which kind of model is suitable for what kind of customers. Capital expenditure model, CAPEX model, is mostly suitable for the customers who have got funds with them. Means funds is the primary requirement for going for CAPEX model, and additionally they should have some expertise, some experience, or some manpower for maintaining the plant, because O&M of the plant is very crucial for its running, its adequate generation. So this CAPEX model is suitable in the cases where the customers are having funds and expertise for maintaining the plant. And in case they do not have funds, they do not want to go get into daily O&M, and they are having adequate rooftop available, then the RESCO model is more suitable. Under this, the rooftop owner is not at all worried about the O&M, and it is the responsibility of the RESCO player to carry out the O&M activities and maintain the generation up to a particular desired level. This is just a comparison to show how the CAPEX and RESCO models have been evolving. We see that initially it was the CAPEX which was dominating, and slowly the RESCO model is increasing its market share because it is a very attractive model for many customers. They do not need to either make investment, nor do they need to worry about the O&M. So CAPEX model is definitely gaining traction and importance in the market. And presently, out of 5.5 or 6 gigawatts of rooftop, around 35 gigawatt, 35% has been installed under RESCO model. Now coming towards the policy parts. Basically, India has got a federal structure. We have got governments at central level, then at state level, and both of these governments contribute to the promotion of solar energy. So at central level, we have got Ministry of Power and Ministry of Finance, who determine the national electricity tariffs. They also provide incentives, subsidy for promotion of renewable energy. And there is the Ministry of New and Renewable Energy, MNRE. They developed the various laws and policies regarding implementation of renewable energy systems, and they define the technical standards that would be required, conduct resource assessment, R&D, and many other activities which are required to promote the implementation of renewable energy. And there are regulatory commissions at central level. It is CERC, the Central Electricity Regulatory Commission. It sets the guideline for feed-in tariffs, various regulations regarding electricity cooperation, regarding the interstate open access, third-party sale, etc. These are governed by the regulations formulated by CRC. Then at state level, we have got state governments, state nodal agencies, state electricity regulatory commissions. The state government develops state level energy policies. They also provide subsidies in some cases. The state nodal agencies, they do the work that is very much similar in nature of MNRE. What does MNRE, what MNRE does at the central level? They do resource assessments at state level, monitor the projects and create awareness, etc. And the SERCs develop the tariffs applicable for respective states, the RPO targets, and the enforcement mechanism. RPO stands for Renewable Purchase Obligation. This basically requires that if you are an obligated entity, you are purchasing power, then some share should be met from the renewable energy. Means up to 100% you cannot purchase from fossil fuels or so. And there are also solar specific RPOs are also there. Means that energy should not be coming from any renewable source, but specifically from the solar energy that is required. And there are also regulations regarding wheeling, open access, third party sale, etc. They are governed by the regulations of the respective state electricity regulatory commission. Now, most of the activities, most of the policies which are being implemented or framed are under the National Solar Mission. So it was initially launched only with a target of 20 gigawatts, which was subsequently, we have already achieved this target, which was supposed to be achieved later. And initially, this target has been revised to 100 gigawatts for solar, which we all know. The strategy which has been prescribed in JNSM is, first, it is graduated deployment of critical technologies till cost come down. And we saw this in solar. Initially, the solar power tariff was exorbitantly high, maybe in the range of 15 rupees, 20 rupees per unit. And initially, when the solar mission was launched, then also at that time also it was 10 to 12 rupees per unit. And at that time, government was providing VGF subsidies. Viability gap funding was there for utility scale power plants. And we saw that initially that the passage of time, the cost of solar reduced and it became self-sustainable. So now it is the market is self-sustainable, and government has withdrawn those CFA and all long back. So this is the example of first point, graduated deployment of critical technologies, and then enabling policy regulatory frameworks like there are many benefits, incentives, exemptions which are available to solar power. And then supporting utility scale power generation. There is a thrust on promoting solar parks, large scale power plants, ultra mega power plants in the country. And the statutory also requires to work closely in close coordination with the state governments, regulators, power utilities, etc. And yes, if anybody has some question, or we can take the questions at the end of the presentation. Okay.
Sir, we can take it at the last.
Okay, sure. So there's also a provision for enhancing the domestic manufacturing and accelerating R&D in the field of solar. We recently concluded tender for manufacturing linked solar also. So these are examples of this strategy to enhance the domestic manufacturing base. And under regulatory framework, we see that tariff for power of solar is fixed by regulators. The CRCs, the SERCs, they regularly come up with their tariff orders, and there is a provision of bundling unallocated thermal along with solar power plants, solar energy. and there is means requirement of competitive bidding, which was introduced through these regulatory frameworks only, and solar specific RPOs, solar RE certificates, lower interest rates for off-grid applications, subsidies. These are all the examples of policy interventions which have been done under the National Solar Mission to increase the deployment of solar energy systems across the country. And coming towards the rooftop solar policy documents, at state levels, there are basically two documents. One is the policy document and another is the regulations. So the policy broadly defines what would be the target, what would be the percentage RPO required, what would be the treatment of open access charge, filling charge, would they be exempted or not, what would be the allocation of subsidies, etc., and how different stakeholders like discoms, electrical inspectorates, SNAs, etc., will be involved in the implementation of rooftop solar power plants. And the regulations prescribe the rules under which the plants have to be installed. They also fix the tariff. They also define the interconnection agreements, the metering arrangements which are required for the rooftop solar plants to be installed. These are some of the aspects in the state solar policies or regulations which should be considered while going for any rooftop solar project. That is, what is the maximum size or the minimum size that is allowed to be installed, what percentage of transformer loading is allowed, and which consumers are eligible for connectivity, for net metering, etc. What are the various modes of metering that are allowed in the state? There are basically net metering, gross metering, or captive consumption can also be allowed in some cases, allowed modes. What is the application fee for connectivity and registry and net metering? And how the energy would be settled means there are differences in the settlement periods. In some cases, it can be if there is any excess energy that is fed into the grid under net metering. So it is not always possible that you will be given compensation for that. Means in some policies, it is like at the end of the quarter or at the end of the year or at the end of 6 months, if there is net export of some units through the grid, so maybe at APPC rate or some other rate, the consumer will be given compensation for that. But in most of the states, if at the end of the settlement period, if there are some units that are exported to the grid, so they generally lapse. There is no compensation for those net exported units. So it is always wise to design a system in such a way that whatever units you are generating, you will be able to consume all of them. That means net export is either zero or it should not be negative. It should not means export should not be positive, I would say. And then what are the open access charges, wheeling charges, T&D losses? What are different charges? Are they exempted or not exempted? These are all available in the regulations. And these are some of the features, like what is the size which is allowed. In most of the policies in most of the states, we see that rooftop solar plants of size in the range of 1 kilowatt to 1 megawatt are allowed. However, there can be some exceptions. Means in some states, the upper limit is not prescribed. You can go up to any limit depending on your sanction load. And in many states, you cannot install more than 500 kilowatts or so. And what are the technical requirements? And also there are limits or ceilings regarding what maximum size depending upon the voltage level, interconnection voltage level. It also defines what maximum size we can install. And in some states, we see that in most of the states, the sanction load is the defining factor for the maximum limit, for the maximum size of the solar plant which we can install. Say in Gujarat, it is up to 50%. In some states, it is 80% like Manipur, Rajasthan, but in most of the states it is up to 100% of the connected or sanctioned load and up to 1 megawatt. So these are the two conditions which are there in most of the states, barring some exceptions. And then also we have got a limit of loading of the distribution transformer. In most of the states it is around 15%, but in some cases it is 20%, 30%, and can go as high as 75%. Means in any particular transformer we cannot connect more than 50%, 15% or 20% of total solar rooftop solar plants to a particular transformer. If we want to do that, then we'll have to go for upgradation of the transformer. And this is also just to highlight that there is a wide variation in this limit across the states. Then comes the application fees. It also varies from state to state. In some state, it means it can vary from 100 to 1,000, and in some states like Kerala, it is refundable also. Means if you are able to install your solar plant in the prescribed time limit, then up to 80% of the registration fees would be refunded to you. So this is one aspect. These are summaries of various policies or regulations in different states. I would say that probably this presentation would be shared with you, so we can just refer it whenever we want to know about any particular state. And one more thing is that these regulations sometimes keep on changing from time to time. So it is always advisable to refer to the latest regulation of the particular state if you want some updated information. But what I would like to highlight it is in most of the states, the wheeling charges, banking charges, or cross subsidy surcharges, they are exempted for these rooftop solar plants. And in most of the states, all type of consumers are allowed for installing plant, be it residential, commercial, institutional. So in most of the states, they are allowed to install rooftop solar, and many state net metering is available in most of the states. Some of the states also allow for gross metering, but in gross metering, we know that there is a requirement of fixation of tariff by the DISCOM and the respective SERC. So it becomes a bit difficult to implement these plants. But anyhow, that option, that facility is available in most of the states. So these are just the summaries which we can always refer back to. This is also a summarized status of most of the states, means what is the cap on export of solar energy, what is the limit with respect to the contract demand or the sanction load. Means we see in most of the states up to 100% of the contract load or the sanction demand capacity we can install. Say if we've got a connection of 500 kilowatt kV, 500 kVA, and we've got a available rooftop area that is available to that is sufficient for 1 megawatt of solar plant. But because our contract demand is lower than 1 megawatt, so we cannot go for 1 megawatt. We'll have to install only up to 500 kilowatt. So this is just a summary, and one important aspect for all the policy framework for all the projects is the rule, that the law, that is Electricity Act. This is the major governing or overarching framework, which rule which provides framework for renewable energy. And it should be noted that this Electricity Act 2003 is has been in consideration for amendment for a significant period of time, and a bill has also been placed for proposing amendments. The draft has been circulated for comments also. So what major changes regarding solar which we can expect after the amendment bill is passed? We see that there is a provision of notification of a renewable energy policy by the central government. And then there is also a concept of renewable generation obligation, which is supposed to be introduced. So if you are a generator, a large generator, then it would be required that a certain percentage of generation should be done through renewable energy systems. Means we cannot have a large thermal generator without generating any renewable energy. So this is one aspect. Another is delicensing of generation and supply from renewable energy sources. These all are aimed at promotion of renewable energy. This is why I would like to highlight these over here. And the surcharge, and there will be no surcharge for purchase of renewable energy power through open access. And then there's some ambiguity regarding cogeneration and renewable energy. What is the percentage, how much percentage of renewable is required for an energy to be considered as renewable? So these are some of the ambiguities which have been clarified in the draft. And also there are stringent provisions if there is non-compliance towards RPO. Presently there is no such provision for if there is non-compliance, then we cannot force the states in a very effective manner to meet the RPOs. Now coming to some of the challenges which we face in rooftop solar. The first major challenge is identifying the roof, convincing the customer to go adopt solar. So we have been doing a lot of workshops, and we have been working with state governments, SNAs, to promote solar energy. And another very big challenge was agreement between rooftop owner and vendors. There was no standard document which could be referred to. It means in absence of any standard documents, there were any document was always open to interpretations, open to different approvals, requirement of different approvals. So what we did, the ministry came up with a standard document and got it approved from the Ministry of Law and Ministry of Finance. So it is very easy for different offices, for different government organizations now to simply adopt these standard agreements. They need not to again go for approval, and this has reduced the project time by a certain extent. Then there are concerns regarding grid connectivity. What are the different metering arrangements, metering standards? Many a times what we see that the regulations are also changing from time to time. Many a times the discoms are also not very much aware about the process of granting grid connectivity. So these are also concerns regarding connectivity. And then as the rooftops are distributed across a large area, so monitoring the performance of all the plants is also a bit difficult. And then there are different agencies involved, different companies. So everybody may have their own separate kind of inspection checklist, and also these are all issues which we may face during the implementation. And definitely there are also some quality issues which we should focus on, so that the plant is performing as per the expectation, because it is a very long-term investment. We expect the plant to perform for 20 or 25 years. So every equipment, every material that is used should be of sufficiently good quality. So, and definitely the roof plays a very important role. The load bearing capacity of the roof is a great concern. In many cases we saw that the roofs were very old, so such kind of installations are not advised. And shadow is definitely one of the most critical aspect. Is shadow in on even a single module can impact the generation to a great extent. So shadow analysis, proper shadow analysis is very much required. And the structural material means many at times people focus on inverters, focus on modules, but some other material like cables and structure is ignored in some cases. But we should be very much vigilant about substandard material being supplied in the structure. The structural strength is very crucial because uh, if you want the system to be standing for the coming 20 to 25 years, so it should not get rusted, it should not get blown away on any light gust of wind. So these are the issues. Definitely maintenance is not very difficult for rooftop solar plant. The main activity is just cleaning of the modules, regular cleaning that is required. And another is quality and workmanship. So means tightening of cables and using proper size of cables, proper cement, etc. These are some other aspects. Now coming to some of the schemes of Government of India, this achievement linked initially there was subsidy for all the customers for all the categories in 2013 or 14. The subsidy was a capital subsidy was available for rooftop owner for any category, be it industrial, commercial, or residential, government, etc. So once it was found that the prices have dropped down and the commercial industrial customers can afford the plants without subsidy, so first the subsidy was discontinued for industrial and commercial sector, then it was available only for the residential, social, government sector, and after that it was also discontinued for residential social sector, institutional sector, and for government sector, the subsidy was discontinued and an achievement linked incentive was introduced. So under this scheme, the target was given that this much of capacity has to be installed in a certain defined duration, and the incentive was calculated based on the achievement against the defined target. So this was only for the government buildings. Anyhow, this has also been discontinued in the present year, and now the subsidy is only available for residential customers. Under this achievement linked incentive scheme, there was a provision of up to 25% of incentive for general category states, and up to 60% of the project cost for special category states. These special category states includes hilly areas, Himachal, Jammu Kashmir, Uttarakhand, and northeastern states, and island states, Andaman Nicobar, Union Territories, Lakshadweep, Andaman Nicobar, etc. So, effectively, this has also been discontinued, but presently we have got a scheme which is operating under this. So, supposedly, it is the last scheme that is available for any government institutes at present. Just we should have a look at the tariff and the project cost, which has been discovered under our rooftop solar tenders. And this is a data of a tender which was opened in 2017, and we see that the capex project cost varied from 65,000 to 30,000. This was depending upon the region, basically. And the RESCO tariff at that time was in the range of 3 rupees to 4.5 rupees. This was 3 years back. And now this year we had a similar scheme. This is presently active and the rates are valid at present also. So we are able to see that there has been a significant reduction in the capex project cost also. We should also consider that yes, there is a subsidy or incentive available in this scheme, but even considering that subsidy or incentive, we will be able to calculate that the capex project cost is not more than, let's say, 36,000, 37,000 for per day. That is capex projects of capacity more than 25 kilowatts. And for RESCO projects also, the tariff is in the range of 3.2 to 3.3. So definitely it is a very attractive tariff if anybody wants to adopt rooftop solar. Most of the government offices or buildings are would be presently paying electricity in the range of rupees 8 rupees, 9 rupees or so. And if they switch on to say a RESCO plant, at a tariff of 3.33. So from the day one, they'll be having a saving of 5 to 6 rupees per unit. So that's a substantial amount of saving which can be made under this rooftop solar plants. And this is the phase two of rooftop solar scheme, which is only applicable for the residential solar. Means, as I just mentioned, that now the subsidy is available for residential customers only. So this is that scheme, that phase two, which we call, and the target capacity is 4 gigawatts, and up to 40% of the benchmark cost is available as subsidy for smaller plants up to 3 kilowatts, and after that there are slabs 3 to 10 kilowatt capacities, 20% subsidy, and also for RWAs and residential societies who can collectively install a plant on their roof. So up to 20% of project cost is available as subsidy. This is to be implemented by discoms now. The tenders and all the implementation for phase two will be done by discoms, because primarily it is for residential sector, and it is felt that discoms are having a better access, a better interface with the residential customers, so it would be easier for them to install the solar plants on residences. And there is an incentive for the discounts also. Means if they are increasing the capacity in their respective area of operation, so then there is an incentive of 5% of project cost up to for the discounts. So this is just to promote or to increase the role of discounts, because many times discounts feel that with the increasing solar, their consumer base, their revenues are decreasing. So to motivate them, there is a provision of incentive to discounts also under this scheme. So this is all which I have at present, and if there are any questions, then I would welcome you.
Hello. So you are not audible.
Hello.
Yes, sir.
Yes. Am I audible?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yes, please.
Participant, if you have any question, you can ask to Yameen.
Yameen Saab, I have a question, please.
Sure, sure.
First of all, I'm thankful to you for such a nice and widely covering talk.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
And you have your talk is well placed also in our schedule, because participants have gained some basic idea, basic information about these plants, and there were some questions related to the aspects which you have discussed.
Sure,
So
sir. Sure.
my question is basically related to what you were discussing towards the end of your talk.
Yes.
I feel there is a kind of reluctance on part of the discom people, because they have to satisfy this contradictory requirement that on one hand they have to increase their revenue,
Yes.
and on the other hand we are pushing them to go for more renewable energy sources and that. So in that you have discussed that there is an incentive
Yes.
for discom. So is this incentive scheme already implemented, or it will be implemented in future?
This has been notified. Many discoms have even come up with their tenders under this phase two of rooftop solar. So this is active at present.
So how it will work? What is the scheme and how the discoms will function in this?
See, there are two aspects. One is the discoms will have to come up with tenders for implementation of the rooftop solar on residential residences only. So one part is coming up with tenders for implementation of solar on residences. They will finalize the rates and they will finalize the vendors and they will get the plants installed on residences. The
So,
incentive,
so that means the consumers will get the plants installed through those
those
successful bidders
discoms.
only.
Yes, yes,
Hmm?
through those successful bidders only.
Okay.
And the incentive to discom would be is based on the criteria even if they are not able to install on residences,
Hmm.
there is an increase in the rooftop solar overall increase maybe on industrial units or commercial organizations or so under the area of operation of discom. If there is an net effective increase in
Software.
rooftop solar, so
Okay, software. Hmm.
they will be given some incentive based on the increase in the rooftop solar capacity installed under the discom. Even if
So,
that,
so
yes,
they will submit their installed capacity at what it was in the beginning of financial
yes,
year,
yes, 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 definitely.
and then at the end of financial year.
At the end of the year, they'll have to submit that this is the installed capacity now. At the start of the year, the capacity was this much. So those all documents would be verified, and depending on the increase in capacity, increase in installed capacity, they'll be given some certain incentive based on that percentage.
Oh, so you think that this scheme is gaining momentum? Discoms are already participating in it.
Yes, so some discoms have already come up with tenders. Some have already finalized the vendors and rates for residential customers.
Hmm.
Discoms Delhi or so means discoms are working on this. Discoms have accepted because the thing is that you rightly mentioned that yes, they are at a certain disadvantage, but the fact is that even if they do not want an increase in solar capacity, but ultimately there is going to be an increase because it all boils down to the cost. If the cost has reduced significantly, then any consumer is free to go for a solar from the market.
No, in that case, what is happening? What I
Mhm.
feel is that
Yes,
because
sir.
if the discom is not on board willingly, then it
Mhm.
becomes difficult for the consumer, especially in the case of net metered systems, because they are if they are not enthusiastic about installing these
It
plants, then it becomes difficult.
it becomes definitely it becomes somewhat difficult, but
Hmm.
at the end of the day they can delay it for some days, 1 day, 2 days, but
Hmm.
not means not very long means
They
ultimately they'll have to concede because it is allowed as per the regulations, so they don't have any reason to deny it ultimately
so
they'll have.
you cannot stop an idea whose time has come.
Yes, yes, definitely, definitely. They'll have to come on board. So either uh, take advantage of the situation or just suffer. That is the only option left with them.
Okay, thank you. Now I invite other participants also to either speak your question or you can send in the message also.
So this is Zuhaib from this side.
Yes, please.
So what is the payback period if I plan to install a solar plant at my rooftop? What is the roughly payback period for this?
See, the payback will definitely depend on what type of consumer you are, what tariff you are paying at present, and what is your electricity bill. But anyhow, it can be anything 5 to 6 years. 5 to 6 years is a reasonably good time. Hello.
Yes, sir. Yes.
Yes, sir. Were you able to listen to the answer?
Yes, sir. Yes.
Yeah, thank you.
You are perfectly audible. I mean, no problem.
Okay.
Is there
Okay.
anyone who can ask?
Other participants?
You can ask your question in the chat box also if you have.
Um, so I have one more question. Yeah, means of
Sure, sir.
yeah. So now this question specifically is related to SECI.
Yes, sir.
What do you feel? What is your take on this RESCO scheme, SECI CPWD scheme of uh, SECI and CPWD? What kind of impact you feel this scheme had?
Definitely, sir. It was a very successful experiment, and the customers were
I am asking this question because I believe I was the first one to that scheme implemented in any campus.
definitely we are happy that we are able to implement solar plants at AMU in both our schemes in CPWD and in the subsequent that 500 megawatt scheme also there have been installations at AMU, and definitely it was very successful scheme because what I believe is both the customers and the developers were very much satisfied after installation of the solar plants. At that time, tariff was also good, and I believe that the university must be making good savings because of this rooftop solar plant. And it was for government buildings. It was this experiment was not done before in
Hmm.
2015 or 2014 we came up with some 10 we came up with a tender which was basically capex a 10,
Hmm.
and in that tender we got some feedback from the customers that they wanted if the plant can be installed without any investment. So we did an experiment and allocated 10 megawatts or so, converted 10 megawatts into resco, and it was I mean, it's sold like a hot cake. And
Hmm.
based on that experiment, we came up with the CPWD tender. And in that tender, also a large number of parts were installed. The only difficulty which we faced was the timeline because the timeline was very stringent. It was the ministry scheme, so we had to keep that timeline as per their requirement. So if we could have got some more months, few more months, then definitely we would have been able to install more plants. But anyhow, we came up with a next scheme under RESCO model, and in that scheme, I believe more than 100 megawatts have been installed across the country. So, considering the size of rooftop, it is a significantly good number, I believe. And,
Hmm. It
and
it led to many institutions going for this
yes, yes,
plan. But
yes, sir.
do you see
Yes.
this scheme coming again in some form or?
Presently we have got a 97.5 megawatt scheme that is also a similar scheme. So if
So
anybody
that is available for educational institutions
for
also?
government, yes, government buildings, all
Government building.
government education.
Okay.
That is same scheme, and the rates are, I think they are better than the last time.
The same 3.7 or 3.8 rupees per unit.
This time for Uttar Pradesh it is 3.33.
So it is open right now.
Yes, it is open, and most of the capacity has been booked. But yes,
Okay.
some capacity is available. If some
Any minimum number, minimum capacity?
minimum capacity is for RESCOs is generally 50 kilowatts or so. So most of the large buildings, most of the large organizations have that capacity available.
Okay. Thank you, Yamin. Some questions in chat box are there. Can
Sir,
you
there is a question in chat box asked by Shubham Mishra.
Yes,
Sir,
yes.
sir, he has asked if they have a load of 4 kilowatt, how much capacity of plant they can install?
4 kilowatt.
Yes, sir. If a residential building has a total load of 4 kilowatt, how
See,
much capacity of plant they can install?
I would like to suggest them a different way. Just check how much is their consumption, is average daily consumption, how many units, and they can take a thumb rule that okay, good rooftop solar plant would be generating around 4 units per kilowatt per day. So that would be more helpful in arriving up to the capacity, because maybe the load could be 4 kilowatt, their consumption could be lower, significantly lower than that. So it's always advisable to look what the electricity consumption in units is, and accordingly decide. So you can take a estimate based on 4 units per kilowatt per day of solar generation. Okay,
Sir, there is another question.
sure.
What is the cost per kilowatt of solar energy if we want to install 4 kilowatt? Suppose. What is the cost per kilowatt of installation?
See, presently, for smaller systems, you can always it could be around 35 to 40,000. It can vary per kilowatt per kilowatt
Okay, sir.
without any subsidy.
Okay, sir.
Okay.
Is there any question left? You can ask in the chat box or you can ask sir directly. Okay, sir. I think uh, they have asked some. Okay, sir. Thank you for a very nice interactive session.
Thank you
I,
very much. It was a
I
pleasure
thank
to
you.
interact with you all. It was a nice experience. Thank you very much. Thank
Thank
you,
you,
sir.
sir. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you.